Let's pour some sparkle into a Petri before it cures and see what we get. Hi everyone, it's Miriam with a Y. If you're into alcohol inks and resin, make sure to subscribe and click the bell for techniques, tips, resources, and just plain fun. For our Petri today, I'm going to use inks from Kielty, JACQUARD's PIÑATA line, and MARABU. It's going to be a little alcohol ink party in here with a few companies invited. Today's piece will be a bit deep in volume of resin, but I'm still going with room temperature ClearCast 7050. So what do I mean by that? In order for the inks to be able to sink through a deeper piece, the resin needs to be thin enough to allow it. Most resins at room temperature are about the consistency of honey. This is ClearCast at room temperature. Much too thick for inks to drop through easily, even after you mix in part B, which usually makes the resin a little thinner. So the thing to do is usually warm your resin to get it to be a little runnier or thinner, more like maple syrup, or even thinner. Another option is to work with a thinner resin to begin with, like liquid diamonds. This is liquid diamonds at room temperature. But I want a thicker resin today, so I'm going to work with this. Now, when you use thinner resin, or resin that's been thinned down, you've got a chance of getting this look, where a lot of ink can drop through and give you amazing 3D effects, as opposed to this look, where most of the inks stayed on what I call the work surface. So they didn't sink down so much. They stayed mostly here. Now, this is a beautiful look in its own right, and it can even be more fun as a great base for effects. Effects that we can get by pouring resin on top of what's sitting here, which is how we got this look. So originally we had a very flat base where most of the inks just stayed on this side, but then we poured resin on top and we got these fun sort of tubular effects. Now, for today's video, what I'd like to do is add some sparkle to that extra resin that we'll pour on top. But rather than use thickened resin to pour on top like I did here, I'd like to use resin from the same batch that we're going to be pouring into our mold. So freshly mixed resin. In other words, resin that wasn't previously mixed and allowed to thicken up to get sort of defined lines. If you're a little confused, this will all clear up as we go through this. I promise. Let's do this. 75 milliliters of ClearCast 7050 is mixed up and ready to pour. Given that it's going to be a little deep, I'll pour some now and clear away any bubbles against the wall and the edge of the mold before I add more. I'm also going to save about 15 milliliters to add later. This is the extra resin I was talking about. It doesn't have to be precise, by the way. Roughly 15 milliliters is fine. If it's closer to 12 or closer to 16, it's fine. Now, for those of you wanting to get some of this resin for yourselves, I have a wonderful coupon code for it. It's 20% off if you use the coupon code Miriam when you place your order, and the links are in the description box below. Now, for my colors, I'm starting out by making a bit of a bullseye. 3 drops of blue, followed by 2 of white, 2 of red violet, 1 white. There's no real science here. My goal is just less white than color. That's all. Some purple, 1 white, some blue, white, 3 green. I threw in yellow because why not? A little white. And now some green and white on the periphery. And some purple and white too. Given that the resin is room temperature, I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to have white sinking to the bottom here, especially on the edge, because I'm going to limit how much white I'm putting here. And in the center, I was careful to always drop it in the middle, so if any does make its way down, it should do it in a decent pattern. She says with fingers and toes crossed, by the way. All right, time for a bit of pearl, which I think is now going to become my Petri signature. I love that it adds a beautiful shimmer, and I also love the effects it gives. Now a touch of blue and red violet to liven up these patches on the edge. And then look at the beauty of the blue hitting the pearl in the middle. How cool is that? Is that not the coolest thing? Oh. And then, of course, a little bit more pearl, followed by a couple of drops of resin to open things up. And then for more blingage, that's my word, blingage, let's add a couple of drops of MARABU's luscious rainbow to the center. And watch that dance. Oh, love this. I'm now adding a couple of drops of rainbow to the leftover resin. So remember, this resin is the same age as the resin in the mold. Unlike in the previous worm video where I mixed up an earlier batch so that it would be a little thick when I poured it into the Petri. This resin is still as uncured as the resin in the mold because it's all the same batch. So when I pour it in, it's not going to make tubes because that's not what I'm after here. Now after mixing the rainbow in, I've got a few bubbles again in the resin, so I've got to give those a chance to rise for a couple of minutes and pop. Now I'm pouring some of my mix right on top of just the middle of the Petri in a tight spiral motion, narrowing and working my way toward the middle. I then pour the rest of this glittery resin around the edge until I run out. All of this extra resin will take alcohol ink from the top surface down with it, and it will also gravitate toward the center once it hits the bottom. So it should give us an interesting look. Again, fingers crossed. Now, the other day, my friend Sharon of Vivid Days did a video showing how to easily clean these awesome silicone cups that I've been recommending for the last year. Now, I'm going to add a quick tip to her already great advice. Now, when I'm done with a pour, I scrape any leftover resin over to the number area inside the cups where, the numbers are raised inside the cups, because this is where little cured bits of resin can be tricky to remove. So after getting the resin over to this part of the cup, I spread it liberally over the numbers, if I've got enough resin, as much as I can, and then I rest my stick on top of the numbers. And then I set my cup down on its side with the numbers and stick down flat on the table, and I let it cure in this position. So the next day, when I remove the stick, it will pull out the little bits in the numbers for me, and cleaning the rest of the cup is a breeze. Now let's see how the Petri turned out. It is a little silly how excited I am about demolding this. I am so excited because of all the rainbow that I hope you can already see sparkling along the edge in the negative space and in the middle. And then there's this really pretty lacing that happened with some of the white. And I love how all the inks kind of came toward the middle, especially this beautiful purple. Alrighty, let's see what we got. Good release, so I'm really grateful for that. The edge looks interesting. That's good. Okay, let's take a look at the edge. Alrighty. Time to flip. Oh my gosh. Oh, cool. It is like veils in here. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh, it's so cool. It's like these ethereal veils. Oh, I love this. And it's interesting that the rainbow did not come down through to the bottom as much as I thought it would, but it's really hanging out here in the center, which is really neat. And I love how this all curved in on the edge here. So what's causing this inward movement here is my having poured that resin around the edge, and that resin wants to work its way toward the middle. So what it's going to do when it does that is pull everything that's down here with it, and that is causing this beautiful sort of turning in of all these little tendrils. Ugh, I just can't get over these. So this is what we have on this side, which is really pretty too. It reminds me of a pansy somehow. Oh, look. Let me show you the detail. Oh my goodness. Resin companies have got to continue mass producing resin because I want to make these forever. I mean, no two are alike, and they're all just fascinating wonders. Tell me in the comments and with a thumbs up if you'd like to see more Petri art, maybe more elaborate techniques, and tell me what colors you'd like to see me use. Thank you all for enriching my creative life with your fellowship and enthusiastic joy in making beautiful art. Thank you also for using my links when getting your supplies so that I can get my supplies. And huge thanks to my amazing patrons who make these videos possible. Hugs to you all. May all of your creative natures shine. See you soon. Bye now.